Welcome to Good Grief, the podcast where resilience meets reality. I'm your host, Dr. Christine Malone. In this podcast, we delve deep into the stories of individuals who've triumphed over tragedy, adversity, and trauma. In every episode, we bring you raw and honest narratives from guests who faced life's most challenging moments head on. Through candid conversations, they share their journeys of resilience, shedding light on the strategies, mindset shifts, and support systems that empowered them to rise above their darkest hours. Join us as we explore the profound depths of human resilience and discover how, even in the face of life's toughest trials, there can be light, growth, and yes, good grief. Listeners, thank you so much for joining me today. I have two guests, Rocio and Angel, and they are the authors of the Orchid, Secret Code of God. And they are going to talk about their book and how it can be used, the insights to guide us through the landscape of grief and trauma and things like that. So, Rocio and Angel, I will turn over to you just to give us a bit of background about why you wrote your book and what it's all about and who you're here to help.
Thank you so much for giving us this space. It's really special for us to be here.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, look, it's really, we are normal people. We come from corporate America. We have two daughters. We have traveled a lot extensively throughout the world. And in the outside, you would say, wow, these people are fantastic. They're living the life. But deep down inside, there was something missing. And in my case, it was purpose. And in the case of Rocio, it was looking for forgiveness. We come from very humble backgrounds. There was poverty. There was sexual abuse. There was missing parents. You know, I spent 5 hours with my father at 40 years old, and that was the extent of our relationship. And Rocio, the same.
Yes, and natural disasters too.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we started looking for a way to change. And really, it was Rocio who was leading that. One day she met with someone and had a fantastic experience where that person helped you feel better about a particular thought or situation that you were having that day.
And it's, when something changed, and I was for first time, I experienced like the emotion left my body. And in that moment, for me was, oh my God, I want more of that, because I was feeling that I have so many emotions trapped. So we went and studied spiritual psychology, and the process of the master is to really begin to release all the limiting beliefs and release all these ideas who are really connected to your body. So when I was releasing and releasing and releasing, really I was feeling fantastic about myself for first time in my life. Mm-hmm. And I finally understand that Angel, for example, he was a guy who always was positive and the glass was full. And in my case, always the glass was empty. And it's like life is terrible, because that was what I was experienced since I was a child. So it's very difficult to break with that mold or that way of thinking if you don't know that it's possible. So at one point when I was feeling great, I came to him and it's like, let's do a TV show for more people to begin to understand that it's possible to really break free from these emotions that we carry inside of our bodies.
And at that moment, the only thought that came to my mind is, we've never written anything. We're quite capable people, but we are not creative people, or at least it didn't feel that way at first. Why don't we do something else? Why don't we start writing a story? And humans have been telling stories around fires for thousands of years, if not millions. And people understand that. No one, I didn't have the sense that someone would sit down to read a book from us about self-help, even though we felt quite convinced that we were changing. And so that's how we got to write a book. And we decided to write it from the point of view of 6 women. One of them is the leader of this place called the Orchid, and the other 5 are women who, quote unquote, are broken, feel broken, and they come in with the desire to find the possibility that they can feel different about themselves and about their lives. And that's, in essence, the story.
Yeah. Yeah. And as I was sharing before we started recording, and again, thank you for sending me my copy of the book. If I can get well, no, my blur's not going to work. I have really enjoyed the stories that I've read in here so far. And as a very, well, I write technical stuff, but when I write things that aren't technical, I find that people understand it better if you tell stories. The storytelling, as you said, has been around for millennia. So the whole idea of letting people know this is someone's experience rather than, try this, try this, try that, but this is what this person did, and this is what helped her in these cases. So, I now, did you get involved with this group called? Was it an Orchid? Is the name of is it like an organization? Was that kind of what this is?
No, remember, this is a fiction novel.
Okay.
And we create this place that is a sanctuary.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, for you to receive love.
Yeah.
When we first started looking for what to name it, the truth is that when we started writing, and maybe because of that religious background that is always imprinted in people, the idea was, well, this is the garden. It's the Garden of Eden, is where we go back to. It's that perfect place that we all always dream of, right? And, well, I guess technically and legally, it just was overused. Too many people have been using that for way too long. And so we started looking for a name that could represent the women, the multiplicity of women that we wanted to speak about. And, when you start to get to a point in which you really go down to the soul level, to inside people, right? You start to realize everyone is beautiful. Everything about everybody is absolutely fantastic. And so we started to look for a symbol that could capture that beauty that every single woman emanates. And of course, the orchid emerged.
Yes. Perfect. I mean, orchids definitely are associated with femininity. So it's totally, I can completely see that. And I love how you have your orchids in the background there too. That's
yes.
I can never, this is my whole thing with that's kind of amazing. So if someone were to read your book, what is the goal? What is the goal for, I mean, I read the book, I'm enjoying the stories, but let's say I am feeling broken and I've got this pain I say hold on to because I know we can release it, but some people get a little offended when I hold on to as if they're purposely wanting to stay where they are, but that's a different conversation for a different day. So how does a person really kind of learn from this? And use, I don't want to say tips and tricks, but just use the information to help themselves.
The book is an experience. We are inviting everyone to go to a spa for 7 days and enjoy what is to be in the company of another women and to understand that they can learn from this process for the experience of other women. So the characters, they have challenge, all of them, but little by little, because they show their vulnerability from inside and from outside in a a safe place. The reader begins to have inspiration of how you can really find that emotion that can be in different keys for you to open up and release wherever you are carrying. And we do it with 5 lessons. It's awareness. For what reason you think the way you think. We talk about limiting beliefs and all these ideas that we carry with ourselves and really put us in a cage. Believe me, Christine, at one point I was completely believing that I was less than a fly, okay? And I cannot go out of my prison. In the moment that I begin to understand how to use the information on my favor, I discovered that I was not a fly, that I can change, that what happened 5 seconds ago doesn't define me, and then really all the answers are inside of me. So that's awareness. After we teach what is gratitude, forgiveness, acceptance, and then at the end, intention. Because all of these tools are really important for the process of transform this beautiful energy that we have inside of us. And we call that alchemy.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
So in the moment that you transfer, and then the characters are helping the reader to begin to see different point of view, and that's give them inspiration.
Right, right. I'm wondering if there is, in your experience, your studies and so on, if you found that there's a certain, what I want to call it, the negativity or whatever we need to give up that's harder for people to give up than others. And the one that comes to mind for me is forgiveness. So I'm just curious if there has kind of been, I mean, obviously holding a grudge against someone or holding anger against someone is, I don't think anyone's going to argue that that's unhealthy. But I think that to me seems like it would be some of the harder stuff to get rid of, right? It's like I've been wronged, or forgiving myself for a decision that I made that resulted in something negative, those types of things. So talk a bit about forgiveness and how that can be dispelled, as just gotten rid of.
Forgiveness is, in fact, one of the most difficult ones. And we carry a lot. We carry a lot from the past with us. And not just ours, but an ancestral
Yeah.
past, right? There's a lot of our lineage that is just information that is carried through and through our genes, and it moves on to the next and next generations. And so, yes, we do think that forgiveness is one of the most difficult ones, or challenging ones. When we look at the five of them, we look at them as one single unit, even though they're linear in the book, of course, because you have to write them in that fashion. But really, it's not linear, right? You can spend your entire life in forgiveness, and that alone is going to catapult you into something else. We use, for example, gratitude as a force to liberate, because it's such a gentle, powerful force within you. When you start to see the blessings around you, you can't unsee them. They begin to soften you up in a way that allows for those other steps to take place in a more deep manner, for example. But for me, one of the things that helped tremendously, Christine, to look at forgiveness, because most of us cannot forgive because we think, and we've been implanted with the idea, sometimes ourselves, sometimes by others, that forgiving is something we do for someone else.
Right.
The moment that you turn around and you realize that the forgiveness, the only person and the person who most benefits from forgiving is you, my gosh, you begin looking at it selfishly. And so now I go through life saying, oh, I'm not holding a grudge with anybody. Why? Because it's my energy. I'm not giving it to that person. Not forgiving and holding a grudge is really literally giving away your energy to the past, to the situation, to the individual. And it's not that you can't think about it, but don't give it your energy,
Yeah.
right? There's a huge difference in that. And so when I learned to do that, I became perhaps no different than today when we're walking around with our cell phones, right? We see our cell phone, and it's as soon as the energy is low, we start recharging it. It's now become automatic in our daily habits. That's how I feel about energy. And because I monitor it, I'm more conscious of the places in which I exert it or don't exert it.
A-
And
And I want to add something about our phones. We always make a new download
a
of
new
the new
upgrade.
system.
Yeah.
When was the last time that you did an upgrade of your own system of beliefs?
That's a great point. Yeah, that's a great.
Yes.
I want to bring up, because I get stuck on forgiveness. I've had many episodes where we've talked about forgiveness. It doesn't mean the same thing as making it okay. So if somebody did something horrible to you, I can forgive you without saying it's okay. And for me, the providers that caused my middle son's injuries, preventable injuries, I held, I don't want to say a grudge, but I held a place of just, I don't want to say hate, but close to it in my heart.
Yeah.
Years.
Mhm.
It's birthday and his death anniversary. I would think of them, and it was in my head. I'd like So finally, I figured out what I need to do is I need to forgive them, not to say it's okay. It's definitely never going to be okay, but just to say, I'm now putting it back onto you. And I actually sent an email to one of the providers. I was able to find her. She'd moved across the country, but I was able to find her, and I sent her an email, and I just explained to her that I forgave her and why I was doing it. And I just said, it's your energy no longer is in my life, and I wish you well. She didn't write me back, which is probably best, because I don't know what she could have said that would have been, I wasn't expecting an apology, which is the other thing about forgiveness, is we oftentimes think an apology, and it's like, you're not going to get an apology from many of these people. So I can definitely attest to that sense of, that woman's not in my head. I don't think of her at all. I've got a photo of my son above me. She doesn't cross my mind when I think of him, which got her away from my very positive memories that I wanted to hold of my son. So I definitely can attest to that. It was not easy. It was not easy.
Yes.
So, because it almost, to me, it almost feels like hanging on to that gives me power, when in reality it doesn't. It doesn't. It gives that energy power. So I love how you phrase that. So that was my experience, and I have been a deep proponent of forgiveness since then. And again, not necessarily because the person needs it or whatever. It's like, it doesn't feel like it just means that I'm
Christine, and for what we didn't did it before was only because we didn't know.
Yes. Well, honestly, I'll tell you, for me, I thought I had a right to be angry. I have the right to be angry, right? So that means I get to hold it in me and just be mad. I think back, I'm thinking, I'm not a stupid person. Why on earth did I not figure that out sooner? So I'm hoping that people who read your book can maybe look into that and go, oh, I'm hanging on to this thing that's keeping me from being who I am and who I want to be, and happy in this short life we all have, rather than waste my energy on something that not only can I not control it, I can't change it. So I can't go back in time and make it not happen again. So I can't make a happy childhood. I can't make this. I can't make that. So how do I become that person that I want to be? So that's what I'm hearing you tell me.
100%.
Yeah, one of the things that was really transformational for me when I understood and at an energetic level that it doesn't matter whether I was sexually abused, whether I have a loss in the family, or whether mom or dad didn't pick me up from school an evening, that our bodies store energetic vibration, those feelings of not being
enough,
not being loved, and we store them. And if we're not aware that our bodies are storing that, those can linger. And they can be the source of not just disappointment or anger or sadness, but also sickness in our bodies. And so one of the most important things that I learned is that the releasing of that energy, it is critical for my well-being. And so that's why now I apply forgiveness, I apply gratitude, and really and I was very lucky because I had with me a woman who was experiencing her emotions in her body, Christine. She would be able to identify where the pain was. She was speaking about something with her mom, and she's like, I feel it right here in my ribs. It's where it's stuck.
Here in the throat that I was not able to speak. So I begin to really help understand how to release it.
Right.
And in that moment, I was going again to that memory, and I don't have any of the energy in the body.
Right.
And it's like, oh my God, this is incredible.
Yeah.
That's why I was really in a mission to go to all the places that was hurting, because I understand that when I release it, I don't put more energy to anything like that anymore, and I can create from a place of creativity or abundance or joy.
Right. I mean, scientists this is not, just spiritual, whatever. It's science proves that our health definitely is impacted by our emotional health, are all about that. Sort of cancers, you name it, all that kind of stuff is more highly prevalent in people who have more stressful or harder lives. So I can see just selling the whole idea in that way to just say, really, you're going to be better off, not just feel better, but feel better, which I think is a big deal for a lot of people. I also know the whole idea of positive thinking definitely is part of what happens too. So I had breast cancer, diagnosed with breast cancer 3 years ago, and when that happened, I was, why me? All the different things like that. I've been through enough in life. This isn't fair, which I hate the word fair. That sort of thing, whatever. And then I realized that halfway through treatment, which was not easy, I needed to think on a positive light. So when you talk about gratitude, it was that I'm happy that I'm still here. I'm happy we caught this early. I'm happy this. I'm happy. I'm grateful for this. Great doctors, whatever. So that changed my way of thinking to such a point where I had more energy in a time when my energy was being sucked out of my body like crazy. But it really was that whole power of positive thinking and gratitude rather than focusing on the negativity and again with things we cannot change. I can't go back and say, why me? Whatever. It's just, it happens and we just need to deal with it. So that's kind of a lot of what I'm hearing from you too, is that sort of just really looking toward the positive while you're getting rid of the negative. Would you say those
And
hand in hand?
absolutely. And what we try to do, and we think we accomplish in the book, is that normally in traditional storytelling, we spend a large portion of that story listening to or hearing about the person's drama,
Right.
all the craziness in their lives, why their anger and how their relationships are crumbling and so on. And then towards the end of a story, somehow the phoenix emerges and they change and they live a better life, but we don't know how that happened. And so in our story, we wanted to turn it around. We wanted to mimic um, that saying that says life is 10% what happens and 90% how you react. And so our story, a small portion of it, is about the women's backstories, how they got to be quote unquote broken, to feel the way in which they were feeling. And then the rest of the story, the 90%, is what they did at the Orchid, which essentially is emblematic for really healing, for self-care, for learning, for looking for answers in different places, and all the exercises that they went through in order to come back to themselves. And it's not that they arrived at a destination and all of a sudden they're safe and they're great. It's that they learned tools that they can use again and again for whenever they find themselves in sadness, in anger, in that feeling of despair.
Right.
And so that they could put those into practice. Because it's like you train yourself like an athlete. It's not that the athlete is incorruptible and cannot lose a race. On the contrary, is that he or she has now trained and is better able to kind of call those tools into action, if you will,
Right.
and that wisdom to get them through.
That was going to be my next question, was the longevity. So, I mean, I've got all my problems in me and I go through these steps and I'm able to release that, so on and so forth. New problems are going to happen to me. So it's kind of, like I take an antibiotic for an infection, the infection comes back, that old antibiotic is not working anymore. So it's the skills that learn. It's kind of, I'll even use grieving. Having been through many grief episodes in my life, I know what to expect when I'm grieving, and I know what works for me and what doesn't work for me because of my experiences of again going through trial and error, I guess, in many cases. So it's kind of, that was going to be kind of what I was going to talk
And
about.
Christine, may I ask, as someone who has experienced grief in multiple stages and multiple occasions, would you be able to say that you're better at managing that today than you ever were before?
100%.
Right.
100%. That, and I think, as we started talking about before we started recording, conversations. I get a lot out of conversations with people about different topics with grief and trauma and survival. And I know that I've yet to come across a person that I'm willing to hear your story. Just tell me what it. And a lot of people, culturally, this country, we aren't comfortable with talking about a grief or abuse or sexual abuse, anything like that. We don't want to, we shy away. It's an ugly topic.
Yeah.
Whereas, unfortunately, it happens. It happens a whole lot more often than I think people realize. And so to be able to talk about those things, as I mentioned with my teaching and so on, has just been what I consider to be my way of giving back for the knowledge that I've had that I'm never going to get rid of. I can get rid of the anger and all that, but I can't get rid of what the knowledge has taught me. And so to make something positive out of that knowledge, I guess is how I want to phrase that. That's what you're at.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, look, I mean, in talking about tools and releasing and talking, one of the tools that we mention a lot in the book is journaling, writing. The release that happens when one writes, and especially under certain circumstances, we become a bit ritualistic about writing. Turn a candle on, make sure no one bothers you, because once you kind of connect with yourself at that deeper level, you're just writing and letting it out. And just the act of doing that, it's cleansing.
Yes.
It is. My journal's sitting on the table right behind me, by the way. So, yeah.
Yes.
What I have found personally is my handwriting is horrible, but I find that handwriting actually works better for me than try to type for a journal. So I don't know
Yes.
if that whatever.
It's a connection.
Yeah.
It's a connection with your deeper, your subconscious.
Yes. And I have found also to go back and read something that I wrote maybe a year ago and see where have I come since then? What was I thinking then? Whatever. And that also speaks to where the progress you've made, right? It's like, oh, look at what you've lost. You bought whatever. I can check my progress by how much I weigh, 10, whatever. So that's kind of process with that too. So I really.
To be honest, this is your party. This is your life. For anyone who is listening, this is your life, and that's why it's important to know that you have tools.
Right.
Because you can use it wherever you want, because the person who decides is you. When? Now. No in the past. But you need to make peace with the past to really be totally present in the future, in here, right now, in the only time that we are. Right. That is the present. So in the moment that you begin to understand more and more, that helps you to navigate life in a most
gentler way.
Gentle, yes. So that's the most important part. At the end, you decide if you want to hold to a grudge for 25 years, it's your decision. But if you want to drop it now, it's your decision. So if you begin to have more information, you're going to drop it because is only for you. So enjoy the process.
Right. I mean, I do know people who I think want to keep it in them. I think that that victim complex kind of comes into play in some places, which is fortunate, but you got to want it yourself to help yourself. It's pretty much the way it is.
There's a line in our book in which one of the characters is faced with that. Let go or not let go. And she says, maybe I don't know who to be without my pain.
That's an excellent point.
And sometimes we get lost in the past and we're still living it. And we forget that we are here and now, and the past is gone. It doesn't exist, yet we're still there. And so, it is important that the person, and this was why awareness is critical. And awareness can be attained through, breathing, simply observing, I am here. We've been in situations with people who have been in our house and are undergoing a certain event. And as they're clearly in the past and in the hurt and the pain and the trauma of what was happening, we interrupted them to say, are you aware that you're sitting here and now and you're safe?
Yeah.
And they acknowledge, okay, continue. Right? But so you got to make a distinction.
Yeah. I've read that about panic attacks, where if you're having a panic attack where you're supposed to think of something you can touch, something you can whatever, all the different steps.
Right.
Really is about, I'm here now. I can smell this. I can hear this. I can whatever, which is really, I think, an important part of bringing us back from wherever place we're tending to go to, especially when we're trying to get rid of it. I think in some cases you're probably somewhat reliving it as well, which can be
that's right.
The process. So yes. Well, as I mentioned earlier, we are going to put a link to your book in the podcast notes. I have just been absolutely thrilled to chat with the two of you. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners before we go?
really quick, Christine, if you go to the page 132, you're going to find the spectrum of inner growth.
Okay.
And that helps anyone who is reading the book to understand where they are.
Oh, okay. So self-assessment.
Yes. Because at the end, the process is internally
Right.
to
Right.
really begin to understand if you are in survival or if you are, and what happened and what are the symptoms and what happened when you begin to go to curiosity and how you begin to change all of those little by little, because this is your beautiful process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Great. Anything from you, Angel, before we close?
Well, I would add, and I'm sure it's been said many times in your podcast, all of these things have a remedy. They are not ours. They're not permanent. We may allow them to be. We are the ones that, through choice, allow them to continue. It doesn't mean you know the answer, and we understand that. But keep looking, keep trying new things. It may be one thing or another, but sooner or later you find a little key. And that little key unlocks this little lock that opens the next one and the next one and the next one, and transformation begins to occur. And it could be medicine. It could be a quiet moment under a tree because that's what you needed. It can be any series of things. And that's what we try to do in the book. We try to paint a picture of there are so many different tools and paths that you can take. And if you're lost and you don't know how to take that first step, we invite you to pick up a copy of our book and just go on this retreat for 7 days and give yourself a treat of the other people's experiences. And perhaps through their experience, something lights up in yours that says, I was thinking, oh, maybe I'm going to try that, or whatever, because ultimately it is possible, and you don't have to live with the pain and the grief and the hurt.
Right. Yeah.
It's possible to let go of it.
And I know I've said this already, but I think in your case with your book, it's different from a lot of different so-called self-help books, and that it does have stories in it. So it's like I can relate to it in real time because it's a story, and I can put myself in this person's shoes, whatever that might be, rather
Yes.
than just have a graphic and a chart and a step of whatever, which can help in some cases, but I really think the stories are what sets you apart. So
Yes.
I think
Yes.
done. I thank you so much for your book, and I thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you as well.
having us.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Good Grief. We hope that stories shared today have inspired and empowered you on your own journey of resilience. If you want to dive deeper into the themes of trauma, tragedy, and survival, be sure to check out my memoir, The Day I Became the Spider Killer, a memoir of trauma, tragedy, and survival. In this book, I shared my own raw and honest experiences, offering insights and strategies for overcoming life's toughest challenges. You can purchase the book on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or listen to it on Audible. Your support helps us continue to bring these powerful stories to light and spread a message of hope and resilience. Stay tuned for more incredible stories on our next episode. Until then, remember, even in the face of life's toughest trials, there can be light, growth, and good grief.